which is a remedy. But in terms of specific interventions to help an individual to overcome difficulties in the context of disability secondary to mental illness, there is really very little that is being done. So in conclusion, you have a significant mental morbidity in the community. People who have no access to mental health care have very little chance of recovery. So when you talk about people with enduring mental health problems and they get an opportunity to pursue higher education, unless and until we have a proactive system that exists and people are willing to disclose their problems and the society largely is working towards reduction in stigma and discrimination, there may not be many opportunities for people with mental health problems to get into the system. If this situation is facilitated by enacting UNCRPD or revision of acts, Mental Health Act, Mental Health Care Bill, it will only be a buffer rather than really solving the problem, because really solving the problem would require early identification of mental health problems, helping people access care, get these people to receive support continuously, because 2/3 of people with severe mental disorders will have recurring mental illness and their disability may progress, while 1/3 may have one episode and recover. With this, I will stop and take up questions that you may have. Yeah.
I don't need a mic. What would you suggest for educational institutions as far as the policy for suicides go?
Okay.
There's been a lot with especially IITs, etc. And there have been crazy solutions like removing ceiling fans and things like that. What do you think an actual response needs to be from an educational institution?
If you look at suicide is an epiphenomenon of distress. It does not always indicate presence of a mental health problem. That is why the courts have decriminalized suicide. But inability to cope with studies, inability to cope with financial problems, inability to cope with urban way of life, particularly when large number of families migrate to cities and towns, focusing attention on mitigating distress is very, very important. The 12th five-year plan has recognized this, and there is a college counseling program as part of the district mental health program. There is an UGC accredited program going on, but this program is very, very good in southern India. I do not know its status in the northern, central, eastern, western India. So, however, the answer to your question is every college should have a support mechanism within the college institution. Many times we struggle with raising resource and say, because lack of resources we cannot create this. The college counseling program has clearly demonstrated that a teacher herself or himself can play the role of counselor if those people are trained. So counselor could be a very, very important source of mitigating distress. The second one could be the teacher is sensitive to identify behavioral changes in the students. Focusing attention on substance abuse could be a very important thing. In fact, people who are dependent on alcohol, a significant number of suicides happen in the context of alcohol dependence. Okay? So therefore, all of these things have to be picked up early and parents have to be involved. The recent trend that we see is families are becoming nuclear, they are not receiving the adequate kind of supports. the autonomy is becoming an important barrier to provide or bring to convergent support systems that is necessary. These are largely the strategies, Vaishi.
Kashmir. Sir, as you have pointed out, there we have only 4,000 psychiatrists in the whole country, sir. So we have, if we see the whole India, we have lakhs of colleges, like medical college, engineering college, and other colleges. When we are already deficient in the number of psychiatrists and psychologists, how could you expect that every college would get a counselor and he will give a proper counseling to that? So I think, can you suggest, sir, we should have a mechanism where we can, where state government will be made, there should be a obligation upon the state government to recruit a number of counselors, or we should take help of other international organizations who will train that psychologists in or providing the counseling to these students.
I am not talking about psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers who could be counselors. Teachers themselves can be trained to be counselors. Though the number of psychiatrists are less, the Government of India has launched what is called as a Scheme A program, which is transforming psychiatric institutions into centers of excellence. At least they are given the responsibility of training people so that the resources increase. Scheme B is converting other institutions where they could be trained. In fact, I have been actively associated with making these two hospitals, Jammu and Srinagar Hospital, to become a center of excellence. Of course, the Srinagar Hospital is only the center of excellence, but these two centers have been able to create resource for the state of Jammu and Kashmir. When I went there, there were 9 psychiatrists in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, so much so that these 28 districts that is there in Jammu and Kashmir had no mental health professional. Today, in each one of the districts, there is a program officer who is trained for 6 months in mental health. There are some officers, about 4 of them, who are trained for 1 year in NIMHANS, and today all the districts have mental health care activities, at least at the level of district, which was not there before. So the answer for counseling is within the context of the college. We have modules with which they can be trained. The UGC is actively having a program which can train these people and provide supports. So they are able to provide the support that is necessary within the limits that is possible within the college, and if there are problems, they can use the other support mental health services in the local area. We hope that over a period of time, things will change. But the most important barrier is the failure to disclose. Mental health problem is a very, very major difficulty. In fact, yesterday evening I saw a lady who has severe mental illness. She is 36-year-old, she is pregnant, she has twins, and she dialed 100 and said there are 10 bombs in Chennai city, and the entire city was mobilized to find out what is happening. They could locate this individual, only found that she has mental health problems for the last 10 years, but she did not receive any treatment so far. So the challenge that is there in front of us is, she is an elderly primary, she has twins, she has mental health problems for which she requires treatment, and she claims she has no mental illness and she would not take any treatment. So often these kinds of difficulties could be curbed at a very early stage, treatment could be initiated. No person with mental health problem would become difficult if we identify early. For example, if a person has a mental health problem and if that problem is treated within 4 weeks, 70% of people recover in a short period of 6 months. Today, when we have large number of people who continue to have mental health problems and about a third of them become homeless, it's purely because of poor access to mental health care, lack of support for families, and all of them has to be provided simultaneously. It is also important to recognize that hitherto mental health care was thought of as a low cost care. Mental health care can never be low cost. It involves significant amount of resources. It requires significant amount of monies to reach the last person with mental health problems. Any other questions? Yes.
I would like to. I would like to ask one thing.
Yeah.
The many a times. Okay. So many a times it happens that when a person has a mental health issue, and you know, I am myself I'm a psychologist as well.
Yes.
So the greatest hindrance in the counseling or in the treatment is the supposed impermissibility of that person. They normally what they say, I don't have a mental problem, or they are not amenable to counseling or treatment because of their own resistance. So that is the greatest hurdle the psychologist
Correct.
encounters.
Yeah.
Now then, when you try to forcibly counsel or treat them, treating maybe through chemicals and or drugs, and psychiatrists can do, but counseling is forcible, it's not possible. And then again, legally there are the claims of independent decision making and all those things in the case of even mentally disabled people. So it becomes a really a tricky affair, meetings to reconcile all these legal claims of independent decision making and their supposed invulnerability to counseling, or even admitting that they have a mental health issue.
Yeah.
So how do you
So
reconcile?
I would like all of you to draw your attention to one important issue, that a person's mental health problems can be categorized as severe mental disorders, minor mental disorders. Severe mental disorders is only amenable to drug-mediated interventions to start with. Other support things are necessary, for example, rehabilitation, work, recreation, socialization, communication skills, and all those things become supplementary, and therefore you refer to what is called as comprehensive mental health care. Counseling is for those people who go through psychological conflicts, people who experience psychological distress. For example, the distress experienced by a spouse, a wife of an individual who is drinking, that is amenable to counseling. Or people who have conflicts over some issues, finances or whatever, marital discord, or other kinds of difficulties are all amenable to counseling. So if you use counseling erroneously, then you get into this confusion. People with severe mental disorders require psychotropic drugs, what is called the neuroleptics. In addition to that, because they have so many other difficulties, they require a normalization process through all of these things: work, socialization, communication, money management, as Vaishi was saying, living skills training. All of these things has to occur concurrently, because these people suffer with all of these problems at one point in time. They become it becomes almost impossible for them to manage their life. And the easiest thing that can happen is withdraw from active social life. That is not going to help the situation.
Sir, 1 minute.
Yeah.
Now it is learned that government is going to adopt one law that after 18 years completion of this person, they should not be kept in any government health rehabilitation center of a private center. What will be the position of that person?
Now, what are you referring to? Are you referring to juveniles?
No.
Hmm.
Some I have visited some one center in Vidarbha.
Yeah.
That the person who is running that institute, after completion of 18 years, that disabled or all the any type of disability, they should not be kept in any government rehabilitation center or a private center. What is the position of these
Yeah.
persons?
I really don't know the context in which you are quoting this particular experience. Any person, an adolescent or a juvenile or young adult who is less than 18 cannot be hospitalized in a center for adults. The law does not permit. They have to be kept in a specific facility where child and adolescents are treated. If you are talking about de-addiction, again the same rule applies that people who have addicted to substances, they have to be in de-addiction centers where only adults are admitted. These are the two things that I can think of. If there are people with mental health problems, conduct disorders, or they have been in conflict with law, then the juvenile justice system will have to deal with that situation. For example, even with young offenders, there is a separate system called the Borstal schools, where they, even though they are under trials, they are not part of the prison system. They are in a correctional program which includes education, physical activity, then sending them home soon after the trials are, preliminary investigations are completed. They go back and they receive life skills education. These are the measures that I am aware of.
I think he's referring, Dr. Kishore, to people, let's say intellectual disabilities who are already in homes.
Yeah.
And what happens to them after 18 years of age when they are
Now that's a different question. People with intellectual disability or all people with intellectual disability will have to. You want me to answer the question or not?
Just the
Yeah.
last question.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So people with intellectual disability should be in a special school or an integrated education program from the age of 6, and they can go on only till the age of 16. After they have completed 16, they can go to a vocational rehabilitation center. Unfortunately, the Ministry of Women and Child Welfare provides them only 3 years of training. And if they complete this 18-19 year period, they will have to go and pursue the vocational training outside. Now, in terms of logic, this is fine, provided the intervention has happened from the time of preschool. So many a times that people receive, if an intellectually disabled child receives preschool inputs, then receives inputs in the school, then there is a significant amount of development, adaptive ability increases, and then this person receives 3 years of vocational training and then goes on for job placement or higher level of inputs. Only for people with mild and moderate mental retardation, that is perfectly alright. But at this point in time, this kind of assortment of services, segregation of services is not happening. Many people, the treatment gap for people with intellectual disability is almost 90%. So there is no chance of anybody going to school. With the new inclusive education, the specialist input that is necessary for people with intellectual disability is completely marginalized. And therefore they are not likely to receive any special inputs. Any other
Sir, I have a doubt.